So on to segment number 5, and this one is focused on the differences now that exist in the curriculum, in the way the curriculum is now structured compared to what it was pre 2023. And so basically before 2023, the curriculum, which has, as you know by now, 10 topics, they were divided in several readings. So each of the reading, if you have access to these to prior curriculums, you will see that each curriculum had a set of learning outcome statements, so LOS, and because of that, you basically, what you had to do is to go through the curriculum and make sure that whatever you learned, tick the boxes of those learning outcome statements, because those are to be tested in the actual exam. But you also used to have some sort of background theory and some background to introduce the reading itself, and to make sure that once you get to the nitty-gritty of the reading, you'll be able to understand it because you already gone through the background theory about it. And as it were at the time, so the readings were, as you can see, more extensive in length. They used to some readings were 30-40 pages long. Sometimes they could be 67 or sometimes even 80 pages long. So yeah, it's quite extensive ones, but these were only the case when for the readings which were really critical, and the insights included in there were really important, to the extent that they are in all versions of the curriculum, so they never go away, they never go out of the curriculum. And so they were more extensive in length. They encompass multiple learning outcome statements, and they have the background theory. They provide several examples. You have a lot of exhibits and figures for you to understand the topic of the reading. And all throughout the curriculum, you also have some questions just for you to make sure you understand what is being explained as you go along. And then you also have the end of reading questions, which are also very useful for you to practice over and over again for the actual exam. But as you can imagine, because the curriculum back then was either in physical books or in PDFs, which were basically transcripts of the books. So these versions of the curriculum divided by readings were more geared to printed versions of the curriculum. Whereas now, currently, the topics of the curriculum are divided by learning modules, which, as the website, the 300 Hours, mentioned, are sort of bite-sized lessons. And so as a result, in comparison to readings, they are shorter in length. Each learning model is focused on only one LOS, all right? And they include videos, they include quizzes, they include other interactive elements, other graphs and all that. But they provide relatively little background theory. So you are just immersed on actually is needed for you to know in order to sit for the exam successfully. And so because they have all these interactive elements, and of course it's a much more modern, it's much more eye-pleasing and all that, it's more geared for a more modern type of learning, in this case online. It allows for users to engage with the material, so better user engagement. And when you want to come back to the topics that you are trying to learn, you can review those topics in a more focused way. You just go directly to what you need to review, and you just review it. So you don't need to sift through the curriculum back and forth like you used to do in the printed versions of the curriculum, pre-2023, whereas you have to look for the stuff you wanted to see and all that. And I remember that this was sometimes it was a bit difficult because you wanted to know where that particular detail was discussed in a previous reading and you could not find it. So you, at the end, you always waste some time going through the curriculum again to look for what you really wanted to review. So in that sense, yes, it can be an advantage. The online version now in learning modules of the curriculum. Now, having said that, and in light of what the CFA Institute claims about this changing, is that each module address one learning outcome, so it's a one-on-one relationship, whereas before each reading had multiple and sometimes 10 or 15 learning outcome statements. And so now this makes it easier for candidates to identify and understand exactly what they are expected to learn. I would say in this case that it becomes easier for them to look for the information they are expected to learn. And so because the learning outcome statements are as clear as they were before, but before you had to look for the information across a larger span of pages, a large quantity of pages, whereas now you just go for the learning model and you'll see exactly where the information is. So it's a simpler process to look for the information, but I don't think the learning outcomes are any clearer than they were before. During my time, they were as clear as water. You just need to look for the information that you needed to know. But for me, and this is for me extremely important, this approach now has several disadvantages because now the scope of the learning process is narrowed to focus exclusively on what is tested. Nothing else matters. So you just need to know what's going to be tested, and all the foundational knowledge that you need to get, because sometimes there are other ancillary topics, other ancillary details regarding to the topics being tested that it's useful for you to know and to understand to become a really knowledgeable person in finance. And for me, to focus on just on what is tested, I think the experience that you get, the learning process, and at the end, how much you end up knowing will be jeopardized. And so more serious candidates, not the ones who are just getting by and just want to go through three exams and get 3 letters after their name. No, I'm talking about those serious candidates who really want to know everything they can about finance because they are really passionate about finance and everything that is related to it. And so these serious candidates, I think they will not be able to get as much knowledge out of the curriculum as the previous ones, and in order to complement their knowledge and their accumulation of knowledge, they will probably have to resort to other sources online to get the information they actually want. And so I think in this case the learning process has become more focused on just getting ready to pass 3 exams. And I think that the CFA program and the charter at the end, because the program is seen or used to be seen as the gold standard of the investment profession, I think that the curriculum should be tailored in a way that it allows candidates just with this material to achieve mastery in finance topics. And I think that just because now it's more exclusively focused on getting you through 3 exams, I think you will not get much. It's much more unlikely for candidates to reach that level of mastery. And because if you achieve mastery, and I mentioned this here in the slide, if you reach a mastery level in finance to the extent that you really deeply know everything about each topic, it doesn't matter what type of exam comes around, or what type of testing or queries or whatever challenges you may come across. Passing three exams becomes a byproduct of your knowledge. It doesn't even matter anymore, because you already know so much. The charter will just become a symbol of your mastery, and passing the three exams will also become just a bump in a road, because you already know that. So it's just a matter of you applying how much you already know. And so in conclusion, I think current candidates will have, no doubt, an easier exam prep experience, just like in the previous segment, as I mentioned, but will come at the expense of becoming less knowledgeable about finance overall than previous ones. And I have to emphasize this, of course, assuming all else being equal, all right? Because we have to consider that this these comparisons that I'm making is about, for example, one candidate pre 2023 and one current candidate. I think that at the end of a program, if they both pass the three exams and they both get the charter, I think the previous one will become more knowledgeable in finance, even though, of course, I know that curriculum is updated every single year, but assuming the the knowledge they have at the time of they get the charter is the relevant one, I think the prior one will be more knowledgeable about finance than the current ones.